Hey everybody, I'm back again. It's Denise and continuing on with oil painting. This is the problem with starting up this YouTube channel that I can only do it in 15-minute stretches. It wasn't that way when I first got onto YouTube a long time ago, but now it is. So what are you gonna do? So until I get to like 1,000 subscribers, or I think, or 1,500 or whatever it is, I don't know, thousands of subscribers, I can only do 15-minute segments at a time. So please tell people to subscribe, and please subscribe yourself. All right, so here's the deal. So the next phase is this is going to be now. There's many ways to paint. Painting I showed you the other day in the one of the first paintings, in the first installment, I think, or the second one, where I showed you the painting I was working on for my niece. That's a portrait, a wedding portrait. That was done with a bit of 2 different techniques sort of merged together. One was wet on wet, and then I used some glazing. Some of the paintings, if you've been, watching anything that I've done, you'll see some very fine, detailed kind of paintings. Those are glazed paintings. That kind of really realistic kind of painting style is not painterly paintings. It's sort of like old master style painting. That is a glazing technique. And that's something we'll do at some point here on YouTube, maybe when I can get more time than 15-minute segments. But anyway, so what I was using was a technique called wet on wet. Wet on wet painting is when you're painting wet paint is not drying. Now, that's if you're new to painting, it is a crazy technique that is really difficult to master at first, for a lot of people. And basically because it gets all mushy and basically you have to go from thin layers to thicker and thicker to get the paint to cover. And that's why there's a juicy kind of look to often really painterly wet on wet paintings, because you really have to get juicy in order for it to work. So this painting that I'm doing for you guys is wet on wet. So I made this painting in about an hour and a half or something. And I couldn't put the entire, so I did a stop motion thing with my camera, and I'm going to pause it along the way, so you can look at it. It's also in the shorts here as the real quickie version of it, the 30-second version of it. Um, mm, in oil painting, and I do suggest, if you find this technique annoying and you don't like it, the other thing you can do is start with acrylic paint. And I'll do an acrylic painting too. We'll do some acrylic painting. We'll do watercolors. We're going to do everything. Pastels. It's all going to be here. So you can try different things and get a feel for what you are naturally inclined towards. And then we'll do more stuff like that too, over the course of the next. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. So, let me make sure this is all the way turned up. It is. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm going to play the video and sort of talk about it. I'm going to have to stop it as it goes because it's kind of spastic. So let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Um, so here's the share screen option. Okay. So we got this. So in this case, you can't tell, but I have put a layer of very pale lavender over, just as sort of like, because I don't like white showing through it. It wouldn't have mattered this case so much because I really covered it up, everything. But I had started actually with this was gonna be my underpainting in acrylic, so dry. But since it's so cold and I use a little too much acrylic, it wasn't getting dry enough. So I just took another canvas and and just did a very light coating of lavender on it. You don't have to do that. I never did that usually, but I do it now sometimes just because I don't want any of the white to show through. That's really the thing. You can sort of play with that and use it too with scraping out and other things. And acrylic, it just dries fast, so you can get to work quickly. Some people just do a very thin layer of color with, like, rub it in with like a paper towel into it and just sort of smear the color in so that it's more like a tint, that's fine too. I just prefer that it's totally dry. Okay. So I set up my palette and I think I have a picture of that somewhere, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'll put a picture in um I basically just have here's the thing about palettes too and everything. There's no rules to any of this, right? But I love Prussian blue because it's got a really deep kind of greenish kind of tint to it. And ultramarine has a sort of a purple. Prussian blue also has the added thing of it is kind of transparent, but it's very pigmented at the same time. So it's an interesting color that there's really nothing like. I have a I have Prussian blue, I have ultramarine. I do have like a cerulean, I think, or turquoise blue on my palette that's left over from another thing. It's another thing I often just kind of like don't clean my palette all the way and just kind of use other stuff to mix in. Um, I have a cobalt violet and also a dioxazine violet, but I didn't really use that so much. That was left over. I have sort of what would be a cad red, but in this case, it's just I think it's a similar color to a cad red. It's like it's not. I also have I think vermilion, and I have a couple different kinds of yellow. Now I didn't really use. Ended up using mostly the orange, which was like the vermilion, and mixing it with cadmium yellow and lemon yellow and a primary yellow that you can get on with the Lucas brand, and then there's of course white, a lot of white mixed in because it's a snow scene. And I also have sap green on there that I intermixed with um, uh, Prussian blue. So that makes a really deep, deep, dark shadowed kind of green that's natural looking. It looks like it's kind of what you see in nature. So here we go. So this is the first layer here where basically I'm laying in that combination right down there. You'll see that I've mixed a pool of Prussian blue with um, sap green. And I got that deep, dark kind of grayish, greenish blue color right there that I'm laying in the dark colors first. So you can see all that. Then um I decided, I guess, to lay in the orange and kind of create where the horizon line was because up here is going to be where the trees are, right? And so I wanted to be able to have some kind of sense of where the horizon because I didn't want to put a bunch of color in here and have to cover that up and fight with the orange being underneath it, and also, or fight with putting orange over the top of the black. So every painting, also, there again, and with the no rules thing, you have to kind of think things through as you're doing it and try to, especially if you're doing wet on wet, to try to kind of not make it harder on yourself. So, for example, if I just slather the black all in, which is what a lot of people would do, and I try to put the orange over it, then the orange could keep picking up the black. And even as it was already a problem at some point, just because the tiniest bit of that dark greenish, blackish, grayish color that I mixed, it's so easy for to contaminate other things. And that's how you get really muddy paintings. So that's what that is. Okay. So here we go. And I mixed here. I mixed, I wish I could get I mixed some ultramarine, some of that Prussian blue with some purple. I think it was just a cobalt purple. And I think I graded down with a little bit of brown sienna, like sienna, burnt sienna. And then I put some different various colors of white so that it would be like this grayish purple blue, which is the color that basically stormy skies are. So there you go. And then this orange is like orange mixed. That's it's not a cadmium orange. I think it's vermilion mixed with some cadmium yellow. Okay. And there I'm laying that in, and I also have, as you notice, the pools of different, and I'm very messy painter. I'm very messy. I have to always kind of end up cleaning my palette off all the time because I expand everywhere. So you can see that there's a pool of the darkest dark to a mid tone to a lighter tone on the top of that. And that's more white mixed in with it. So I'm pulling from those different pools and kind of going back and forth, wiping my brush off. And that's a really important thing. And actually, for me, I'm super lazy and I have a billion brushes. So often what I do is I have it's like a dedicated um, jar of water that once I feel like I can't wipe my brush off enough, I just throw it in there because I get impatient with the constant wiping and it just wastes all this tissue paper and all this, paper and stuff. I just set it in the water and I just pull out another brush and I go and then when I get too gross, it gets too icky, I throw it in the water. Eventually I have a bunch of like, I have to clean a bunch of brushes at the end of the day, but the Dawn does a great job, and I just, spend a few minutes clean them all. At the same time, it saves me time while I'm painting because I like to be in the zone. I don't like to have to worry about all that stuff, and just not my thing. So the reason you should do that when you're doing wet on wet, though, is because it's super easy to get mushy. As soon as you don't clean off your brush, you're going to just start getting like these, and it can be used in some ways, like up in here, where there's lots of gray. I didn't clean my brush off too much. So it was like, well, that's cool. There's a little bit of orange mixing in, there's a little bit, and it's okay to kind of like because it's gray and that's fine. But that orange color, man, the tiniest bit of any other color, like um, that dark color underneath, if you accidentally nick it and take a little bit with you, it just ruins the whole thing. And if you just go ahead and put it on there, it's going to totally destroy the work you've done. Okay.